Marcus Williams pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway of Meridian Financial Group, his footsteps echoing softly against the polished marble floors. The building was quiet now, a stark contrast to the bustling energy that filled these corridors during business hours. It was past 10 in the evening, and most of the office workers had long since departed for their comfortable homes in the suburbs. At 28 years old, Marcus had been working the night cleaning shift for almost 3 years. He took pride in his work, even though others might look down on what he did for a living. Every surface he cleaned, every trash bin he emptied, every floor he mopped was done with careful attention to detail. This job wasn't just about earning money to support his younger sister through college and help his aging mother with her medical bills. It was about dignity, about doing honest work and doing it well. The third floor housed the executive offices, where the company's most important decisions were made during the day. Marcus had memorized the routine by now. He would start with the conference rooms, then move to the individual offices, saving the corner office for last. That corner office belonged to Sarah Chen, the company's youngest vice president at 32 years old. Sarah's office was different from the others. While most executives left their desks cluttered with papers and coffee cups, Sarah maintained a certain order even in the chaos of her busy schedule. Her desk always had neat stacks of documents. Her bookshelf was organized by subject, and she never left food containers or dirty dishes behind. Marcus appreciated this consideration, even though they had never spoken beyond polite nods when their paths occasionally crossed during her late working nights. Tonight felt different as Marcus approached Sarah's office. The light was still on, spilling out from under the door. He checked his watch and frowned. It was unusual for anyone to be working this late, especially on a Thursday. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then knocked gently on the doorframe. "Come in," came a tired voice from inside. Marcus pushed the door open and saw Sarah hunched over her computer, her usually perfect black hair slightly disheveled. Empty coffee cups sat scattered across her desk, and there were papers spread everywhere. Her blazer hung on the back of her chair, and she had rolled up the sleeves of her white blouse. She looked up when Marcus entered, and he noticed the exhaustion in her dark eyes. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Ms. Chen," Marcus said politely. "I can come back later to clean your office if you need more time to work." Sarah rubbed her temples and looked at the clock on her computer screen. "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize it was so late. I've been working on this presentation for the board meeting tomorrow morning." She gestured at the chaos on her desk with a weak laugh. "I'm usually much more organized than this." Marcus nodded, understanding. "Big presentation, I imagine. Those can be stressful." "That's an understatement," Sarah replied, surprised by his genuine tone. Most people seemed to look through Marcus rather than at him. But there was something different in his manner tonight. "I've been here since 6 this morning trying to get everything perfect. The numbers just aren't adding up the way they should, and I'm starting to worry that I'm missing something important." Without thinking, Marcus stepped closer to her desk. "May I ask what kind of presentation it is? Sometimes talking through a problem with someone else can help you see things from a different angle." Sarah hesitated for a moment. It seemed unusual to discuss business matters with the cleaning staff, but something about Marcus's calm presence made her feel comfortable. "It's about expanding our services to underserved communities. I've been researching ways our company can provide financial services to people who don't typically have access to traditional banking. But the initial investment costs are high, and I'm struggling to show the board how it will be profitable in the long term." Marcus's eyes lit up with interest. "That sounds like important work. A lot of people in my neighborhood have trouble getting loans or even basic banking services. They end up paying huge fees to cash their paychecks at those check-cashing places." "Exactly," Sarah said, leaning forward. "Those are exactly the people I want to help. But how do you convince a room full of executives that investing in low-income communities is good business?" Marcus thought for a moment, then said, "Well, what if you looked at it from the volume perspective? Those communities might have smaller individual accounts, but there are a lot of people who need these services. And once you earn their trust, they tend to be very loyal customers. My mother has banked at the same small community bank for 20 years, even though they don't offer the best interest rates, because they treated her with respect when the big banks wouldn't. Sarah stared at Marcus, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. Volume and loyalty, she repeated slowly. I've been so focused on the profit margins per account that I haven't properly calculated the lifetime value of customer relationships. She reached for her calculator and started punching in numbers. Plus, Marcus continued, warming to the subject, if you're the first major financial company to really serve these communities well, you'll have a huge advantage when competitors try to move in later. Sarah looked up from her calculations, genuinely impressed. That's brilliant. First mover advantage in an underserved market. She began typing rapidly on her computer. How do you know so much about this? Do you have a background in business? Marcus smiled modestly. I have a degree in economics from State University. I graduated 4 years ago, but the job market was tough, especially for someone from my background. This job pays the bills and gives me time to take care of my family obligations. Sarah stopped typing and really looked at Marcus for the first time. Here was someone with clear intelligence and insight working a night cleaning job, not because he lacked ability or education, but because circumstances and perhaps systemic barriers had limited his opportunities. She felt a mix of admiration for his dignity in the face of these challenges and anger at a system that wasted such talent. Marcus, she said, would you be willing to help me work through some more of these numbers? I know it's not your job and you probably have other offices to clean, but your perspective could really make a difference in this presentation. Marcus checked his watch. He was ahead of schedule tonight, and his supervisor wouldn't be checking on him for another hour. More importantly, this was the first time in years that someone had asked for his opinion on something that mattered, something that could potentially help people like his neighbors and family members. I'd be honored to help, Ms. Chen. For the next hour, Marcus and Sarah worked side by side, transforming her scattered notes and incomplete calculations into a compelling business case. Marcus shared insights about the real financial challenges faced by working-class families, while Sarah translated those insights into the language of profit margins and market opportunities that would resonate with the board of directors. As they worked, Sarah found herself seeing Marcus not as the invisible night janitor, but as an intelligent, thoughtful person with valuable perspectives shaped by experiences very different from her own privileged background. She had grown up in an affluent suburb, attended private schools, and moved seamlessly from her MBA program into a fast-track corporate career. Marcus's journey had been far more difficult, yet he had maintained his dignity and found ways to contribute meaningfully to his community and family. When they finally finished organizing the presentation materials, Sarah sat back in her chair and looked at what they had accomplished together. The proposal was stronger, more comprehensive and more persuasive than anything she could have created alone. Marcus, I can't thank you enough, she said sincerely. This presentation went from being something I was dreading to something I'm actually excited to deliver. Marcus began gathering up his cleaning supplies, which he had set aside during their collaboration. I'm glad I could help, Ms. Chen. I hope the board sees the value in what you're proposing. A lot of people could benefit from these services. As Marcus prepared to leave, Sarah realized she didn't want this connection to end here. There was something about their interaction that felt significant, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Marcus, she called as he reached the door, would you like to know how the presentation goes tomorrow? I could send you an email with an update. Marcus turned back, surprised by the offer. I would like that very much. Thank you. After Marcus left, Sarah remained in her office for a few more minutes, staring at the presentation materials they had created together. She thought about the assumptions she had made about people based on their job titles, and how those assumptions had nearly caused her to miss out on valuable insights and genuine human connection. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his rounds through the building, but his mind kept returning to the hour he had spent working with Sarah. It had been a long time since someone had valued his opinion, since he had felt like his education and intelligence were being put to good use. The experience had reminded him of possibilities he had almost forgotten existed. Neither of them realized that this late-night collaboration was the beginning of something that would change both of their lives in ways they could never have anticipated. They had connected as equals, sharing knowledge and working toward a common goal. And that foundation would prove to be stronger than the social and economic barriers that seemed to separate their worlds. As Marcus finished his shift and prepared to go home to his small apartment, where his sister would be studying for her nursing exams and his mother would be sleeping after another long day managing her chronic illness, he carried with him a renewed sense of hope. Maybe there were still opportunities out there for someone like him, chances to use his mind and skills to make a real difference. Sarah, finally heading home to her downtown condo well after midnight, found herself looking forward to delivering the presentation with a confidence she hadn't felt in months. But more than that, she was looking forward to sharing the results with Marcus, to continuing a conversation that had opened her eyes to perspectives and possibilities she had never considered before. The next evening, Marcus arrived at work with an unusual sense of anticipation. Throughout the day, he had found himself wondering how Sarah's presentation had gone, whether the board had accepted her proposal, and if their late-night collaboration had made any difference. He tried to focus on his regular duties, but his mind kept drifting back to their conversation and the way Sarah had listened to his ideas with genuine interest and respect. As he made his way through the building, Marcus noticed that Sarah's office light was on again. This time, however, when he approached her door, he could hear voices inside. Through the glass panel, he could see Sarah meeting with two other executives. Not wanting to interrupt, Marcus quietly moved on to clean the adjacent offices, planning to return later. It was nearly 11 o'clock when Marcus finally knocked on Sarah's doorframe. She was alone now, but unlike the exhausted, frustrated person he had encountered the night before, Sarah was practically glowing with excitement. "Marcus!" she exclaimed, jumping up from her chair. "I was hoping you'd stop by tonight. I have incredible news about the presentation." Marcus entered the office, noting that while it was busy with papers and documents, everything seemed more organized than it had been the previous evening. Sarah's energy was infectious, and he found himself smiling before she had even shared her news. "The board approved the proposal," Sarah announced, her voice filled with pride and excitement. "Not only did they approve it, but they allocated an even larger budget than I had requested. They were impressed by the depth of the market analysis and the innovative approach to customer loyalty and retention." Marcus felt a warm sense of satisfaction. "That's wonderful news, Ms. Chen. Congratulations. I'm sure your hard work made all the difference." "Our hard work," Sarah corrected firmly. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. The insights you shared last night were crucial to the success of that presentation. When I explained the volume and loyalty model to the board, when I talked about first-mover advantage in underserved markets, those weren't just abstract business concepts. They were real insights from someone who actually understands these communities." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, not used to receiving credit for intellectual contributions in a corporate setting. "I just shared what I've observed in my own neighborhood. You're the one who knew how to present it professionally." Sarah walked around her desk and leaned against the front edge, facing Marcus directly. "That's exactly my point. You have knowledge and perspective that can't be learned in business school or gained from market research reports. You understand these communities because you're part of them, and that understanding could be invaluable as we develop this program." Marcus wasn't sure where this conversation was heading, but something in Sarah's tone suggested she had more than just gratitude on her mind. Marcus, Sarah continued, I've been thinking about this all day. We're going to need to hire people to implement this community outreach program. We'll need analysts to study these markets, advisors to work directly with clients, and managers to oversee the operations. Would you be interested in joining the project team? Marcus stared at Sarah, unsure if he had heard correctly. Join the project team? As what? As a community liaison and market analyst, Sarah replied without hesitation. You'd help us understand the real needs of the communities we're trying to serve, develop outreach strategies, and ensure that our services are actually meeting people where they are. It would be a full-time position with benefits, and the salary would be significantly more than what you're making now. The offer hung in the air between them. Marcus felt a mix of emotions, excitement, disbelief, and a nagging worry that this might be some kind of charity gesture rather than a genuine professional opportunity. Ms. Chen, Marcus said carefully, I appreciate the offer more than you know, but I need to ask, is this because you think I'm qualified for the position, or because you feel sorry for someone who's overqualified for his current job? Sarah appreciated his directness. It showed the same honesty and clear thinking that had impressed her the night before. It's because you're qualified, Marcus. What you demonstrated last night wasn't sympathy or good intentions. It was analytical thinking, problem-solving ability, and deep market insight. Those are exactly the skills we need for this project. Marcus considered her words. The opportunity was almost too good to believe, but Sarah's manner was businesslike and professional. She wasn't offering him a favor, she was offering him a job. I would need to give 2 weeks' notice to my current supervisor, Marcus said slowly, and I'd want to make sure this position has real responsibilities and expectations, not just a title. Sarah smiled, understanding his need for dignity and genuine contribution. Absolutely. In fact, I'd like you to help me interview other candidates for the team. Your perspective on who would be effective in these communities would be invaluable. Over the next 2 hours, Sarah and Marcus discussed the details of the position, the project timeline, and the expectations on both sides. Marcus shared more about his background, his education, and his long-term career goals. Sarah explained the corporate culture, the challenges they would face in implementing the program, and the metrics by which success would be measured. As their conversation continued, both of them began to realize that their professional collaboration was developing into something deeper. They found themselves sharing personal stories, laughing at each other's observations, and discovering common interests and values that transcended their different backgrounds. Sarah told Marcus about the pressure she felt as one of the few women and minorities in the executive ranks, and how she sometimes struggled with imposter syndrome despite her obvious competence. Marcus shared his frustrations with being underestimated and overlooked, despite his education and abilities. You know, Sarah said during a lull in their conversation, I've been in this building for 3 years, and I thought I knew everyone who worked here, but I never really knew any of them. Tonight feels like the first real conversation I've had in months. Marcus nodded, understanding. It's easy to feel invisible in a place like this. People see the uniform or the job title, but they don't see the person. Last night was the first time in a long time that someone asked for my opinion about something that mattered. Their eyes met across the desk, and both of them felt the weight of that mutual recognition. They had found in each other something that had been missing from their professional lives: genuine respect, intellectual engagement, and authentic human connection. The building's security system chimed, indicating that it was midnight and the automatic locks were engaging. Sarah glanced at the time and realized how late it had gotten. I should let you finish your work, she said reluctantly. But Marcus, I hope you'll seriously consider the job offer. Take the weekend to think about it, and we can discuss the details on Monday if you're interested. Marcus stood to leave, then paused at the door. Ms. Chen, can I ask you something? Of course, and please call me Sarah. Sarah, Marcus said, testing the name. "Why are you taking this risk? Hiring someone from the cleaning staff to join an executive project team is unconventional, to say the least. Some people might question your judgment." Sarah considered his question seriously. "Because I've learned that the best insights often come from unexpected places, and because I think conventional hiring practices have caused us to miss out on a lot of talented people." She paused, then added more quietly, "And because I trust my instincts about people, and my instincts tell me that you're someone worth taking a risk on." Marcus felt something shift inside him at her words. It wasn't just about the job opportunity, though that was incredible enough. It was about being seen and valued for who he really was, not just tolerated or pitied. "Thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity and for believing in me. I'll have an answer for you on Monday." After Marcus left, Sarah remained in her office, but she wasn't working on spreadsheets or reports. Instead, she found herself thinking about their conversation, about Marcus's intelligence and dignity, and about the easy way they had connected despite the different worlds they came from. She realized that she was looking forward to working with Marcus not just because of his professional skills, but because of the person he was. There was something about his perspective, his integrity, and his quiet strength that drew her to him in ways that had nothing to do with business. Meanwhile, Marcus walked through the empty streets toward the bus stop, his mind racing with possibilities he had barely dared to imagine. The job offer was more than he had hoped for, but it was Sarah's respect and trust that really moved him. For the first time in years, he felt like he was moving towards something rather than just getting by. As he waited for the late-night bus, Marcus thought about how he would tell his mother and sister about this opportunity. They had both encouraged him to keep believing in himself when it would have been easier to give up. Now it seemed like that faith might finally be paying off. But underneath the excitement about the career opportunity, Marcus was aware of something else developing, a personal connection with Sarah that felt significant and complicated. She was offering him a chance to change his life professionally, but he sensed that their relationship might change his life in other ways too. Neither of them had planned for their professional collaboration to become personal, but as they each headed home that night, they both knew that something important had begun between them. The question was whether they would have the courage to explore it, given the complexities of their different positions and backgrounds. 6 weeks had passed since Marcus joined the Community Outreach Project team, and the transition had exceeded both his and Sarah's expectations. Marcus had thrown himself into the work with passion and dedication, conducting neighborhood surveys, building relationships with community leaders, and developing innovative strategies for reaching underserved populations. Sarah had been right about his qualifications. Marcus's insights had led to breakthrough moments in their program design, and his ability to bridge the gap between corporate objectives and community needs had impressed everyone on the team. The other executives, initially skeptical about Sarah's unconventional hiring decision, now regularly sought Marcus's input on project decisions. Working together daily had deepened the connection between Marcus and Sarah. They had developed an easy professional partnership, often finishing each other's thoughts during meetings and instinctively understanding how to divide responsibilities to maximize their effectiveness. But alongside their professional collaboration, something more personal had been growing. It started with small things. Sarah began bringing Marcus coffee during their early morning planning sessions, remembering that he preferred it black with just a touch of sugar. Marcus started leaving thoughtful articles on Sarah's desk about innovative banking programs in other cities, always accompanied by brief handwritten notes with his analysis. Their conversations gradually extended beyond work topics. During lunch breaks, they talked about books, shared stories about their families, and discovered mutual interests in everything from jazz music to hiking. Sarah learned about Marcus's dreams of eventually starting his own community development nonprofit. Marcus discovered that despite her professional success, Sarah often felt lonely and disconnected from meaningful relationships. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening in late November. The team was working late to prepare for a major presentation to potential community partners. Everyone else had finally gone home, but Marcus and Sarah remained in the conference room, surrounded by charts, financial projections, and demographic studies. "I think we have everything we need," Sarah said, rubbing her tired eyes. "The presentation looks solid, and the community response has been better than we hoped." Marcus nodded, organizing the scattered papers into neat stacks. The partnership with the community centers was a brilliant idea. Having trusted local institutions as our introduction point makes all the difference. As they packed up their materials, Sarah found herself watching Marcus work. Over the past 6 weeks, she had come to admire not just his intelligence and work ethic, but his character. He treated everyone with respect, from the CEO to the newest intern. He stayed late to help struggling team members, and he never claimed credit for ideas that built on others' contributions. More than that, she had come to realize that her feelings for Marcus had grown beyond professional respect into something deeper and more complex. She found herself looking forward to their meetings, seeking out his opinions, and feeling disappointed on days when business travel or conflicting schedules kept them from working together closely. "Marcus," Sarah said as they prepared to leave the conference room, "can I ask you something personal?" He looked up from the presentation materials he was organizing, noting something different in her tone. "Of course." Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say could change everything between them. "Over these past weeks, working with you has been the best part of my professional life. But if I'm being honest, it's been about more than just work. I found myself looking forward to seeing you, thinking about our conversations when I'm at home, and feeling like you understand me in ways that other people don't." Marcus stopped what he was doing and gave her his full attention. The vulnerability in her voice touched something deep in his chest. Sarah continued, her words coming faster now as she pushed through her nervousness. "I know this complicates things. I know we come from different worlds, and I know that people will have opinions about whatever this is between us. But I also know that what I feel for you is real, and I don't want to ignore it anymore." Marcus set down the papers and moved closer to where Sarah was standing. The air in the room seemed to shift, charged with possibility and uncertainty. "Sarah," he said softly, "I've been feeling the same thing. From that first night when you asked for my help, you've made me feel valued and respected in ways I had almost forgotten were possible. Working with you, getting to know you, has awakened parts of myself that I thought I had lost." He paused, searching for the right words to express something that felt too big and important for language. "But you're right that it's complicated," Marcus continued. "Not just because of our different backgrounds, but because of the professional relationship. You took a chance on me, gave me an opportunity that changed my life. I would never want you to think that I was taking advantage of that, or that my feelings for you were somehow about gratitude rather than genuine attraction and connection." Sarah stepped closer, close enough that she could see the sincerity in his dark eyes. "Marcus, what you've brought to this project, to this team, to my life, that's not about charity or favors. You've earned your place here, and you've earned my respect. My feelings for you aren't about our professional relationship. They're about who you are as a person." The space between them seemed to shrink as they stood facing each other in the dimly lit conference room. The building was quiet around them, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Can we begin right here?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible but heavy with meaning. She wasn't just talking about a romantic relationship. She was talking about beginning something that acknowledged both their professional partnership and their personal connection, something that honored both their individual journeys and their shared future. Marcus understood exactly what she meant. This wasn't about ignoring the complexities or pretending that their different backgrounds didn't matter. It was about choosing to move forward together, despite and perhaps because of those complexities. Without another word, Marcus reached up and gently cupped Sarah's face in his hands. She closed her eyes at his touch, leaning into the warmth of his palms. When she opened her eyes again, she saw not just the intelligent, dedicated colleague she had come to admire, but the man she had fallen in love with. Their first kiss was tender and tentative, a question being asked and answered simultaneously. As they drew apart, both of them were smiling. "So where do we go from here?" Marcus asked, his hands still framing her face. "Carefully," Sarah replied with a laugh. "Honestly, together." They spent the next hour talking about what this new dimension of their relationship would mean. They discussed the importance of maintaining their professional boundaries at work, the challenges they might face from others who didn't understand or approve of their relationship, and their hopes for how they could support each other both personally and professionally. As they finally prepared to leave the building together, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. 6 weeks ago, he had been a night janitor with a college degree and unfulfilled dreams. Tonight, he was leaving the office as a respected professional, walking beside a woman who saw and valued him completely. Sarah, meanwhile, was thinking about how Marcus had brought not just his intelligence and insights to her life, but also his integrity, his groundedness, and his ability to see beyond surface appearances to deeper truths. He had challenged her to examine her own assumptions and had helped her become more authentic both in her professional work and in her personal relationships. As they walked out into the crisp November evening, Sarah slipped her hand into Marcus's. It felt natural and right, despite all the complexity that lay ahead. "You know," Marcus said as they stood on the sidewalk outside the building where they had first met, "I used to think that place was just where I worked to pay bills. Now it's where I found my career and where I found you." Sarah squeezed his hand. "I used to think success was about climbing the corporate ladder and proving myself to people who didn't really know me. Now I think it's about finding work that matters and sharing it with someone who sees who you really are." They walked together toward the parking garage, both of them knowing that they were stepping into something beautiful and challenging and real. Their relationship would face questions and judgments from others. They would have to navigate the complexities of their different backgrounds and the professional dynamics of working together. But they were beginning this journey with mutual respect, genuine love, and a shared commitment to building something meaningful together. As Sarah had whispered in the conference room, they were beginning right here, with honesty, with courage, and with faith in what they could create together. The city lights sparkled around them as they disappeared into the night. Two people who had found in each other not just love, but the courage to envision new possibilities for their lives and their work. Their story was just beginning, but it was beginning with the solid foundation of mutual respect, shared values, and authentic connection that would sustain them through whatever challenges and adventures lay ahead.